Your father controls 25 million lives, and he checks your temperature when you have a fever by pressing his lips to your forehead. Not his hand, his lips. The way fathers do in old films, the way you assumed all fathers did until you were old enough to understand that most fathers are not on every wall of every building in every city of the only country you've ever been permitted to see. He sits on the edge of your bed in the dark. His voice is soft. Outside your window, the compound is quiet in the specific way that things are quiet when their stillness is enforced. The city beyond the wall is also quiet, though you won't understand what that silence costs until much later. For now you are 7, and your father's hand is on your head, and the world is exactly the size he made it, and you have never thought to want it larger. You grow up inside a compound in Pyongyang that most people in Pyongyang don't know exists. The Ryeongsong residence covers several square kilometers in the north of the city. There are multiple houses on the estate connected by private roads. There is a cinema, a swimming pool, a gymnasium, stables, a garden with a pond near the east wall. The staff who maintain all of this move through the grounds with the practiced invisibility of people who understand that their presence should register as furniture, not as human beings. You do not find this unusual. You have nothing to compare it to. The staff wear uniforms and do not make eye contact unless you speak first, and even then they look slightly past you, at a point just above your shoulder. As if direct eye contact with a child of this family requires a permission they haven't been granted. There are perhaps 40 whose faces you know. There are others. You don't count them because counting them has never seemed like a thing you would do. The way you don't count the trees or the fish in the pond. No children from outside ever come through the gate. You have siblings. The 3 of you occupy the same compound, the same small school inside it, the same table. You don't think about the children who don't come because there's no gap where they should be. A child born inside a wall thinks all childhoods have walls. You think all families have men who stand outside certain doors. You think all mothers move through rooms with that particular quality of composure, so controlled it seems structural rather than chosen. You will spend years reading that composure as elegance before you understand what it actually is. Your father's love for you is not complicated. It is the only uncomplicated thing about him. On Friday evenings, he fills 2 seats in the compound cinema and lets you choose the film. He sits beside you with a bowl of tangerines he peels himself, passing you segments without looking away from the screen. And when something makes you laugh, he stops watching the film entirely and watches you instead. His face in those moments is unguarded in a way it is nowhere else. You will understand much later that you are the only person in his life in whose presence he is ever fully unguarded. He brings things back from trips you don't take. Swiss chocolate in foil printed with writing you can't read. A wooden music box that plays a short phrase in a language neither of you speaks. A toy he found somewhere that smells faintly of an airport you've never been to. He presents each of these with a formality that doesn't match their size. The way someone might present something they consider precious. You receive them with both hands. This is one of the behaviors you have absorbed without being taught. He speaks about the country and about your family in the same breath as if they are parts of a single organism. Our people, our responsibility, our future. You are too young to hear the weight inside that word, our. The way it expands to contain millions of people you've never met and contracts to mean the 2 of you watching a film on a Friday night with the lights off and the tangerine peel on the armrest between you. You hear only that you are included, that whatever he carries, you are part of it. You will spend a long time trying to find the seam between belonging and obligation. You won't find it. It was never sewn. It was woven. Your education begins before you are old enough to call it that. There are tutors who arrive at specific hours and address you with a formality that feels at 6 like respect, and that you will recognize years later as something more pressurized than respect. Something performed under conditions you were too young to identify. The history you are taught is a history of your family. Your grandfather liberated the Korean people. Your father continues his work. This is not presented as a position. It is presented the way gravity is presented, as the prior condition for everything else. You absorb it the way children absorb language, not through argument, but through the sheer density of repetition, until it stops being information and becomes the texture of the air inside the room. You learn to identify your grandfather's face before you can read a full sentence. His portrait is in your classroom, which is inside the compound, which means the inside and the outside share this one thing. He is always on the wall. At 10, a tutor shows you a documentary produced for foreign audiences. It covers your father's leadership. The language is Korean, the buildings are familiar, the uniforms are correct. But something in the framing is different from anything you have encountered inside the compound. You cannot name the difference. You know only that watching it feels like hearing a melody you know played back in a slightly different key, close enough to recognize, wrong enough to unsettle. You don't ask about this. The question forms and then dissolves the way questions do when a child understands, without being told, that certain doors are not for opening. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. At 13, a staff member leaves a USB drive on the shelf above the laundry machine. Small, black, the kind that costs almost nothing. You find it. You don't hand it in immediately. You put it in your pocket, and that evening you plug it into the computer in your room and you look at what's on it. There are television clips, South Korean, a news segment, a variety program, an advertisement for a supermarket in Seoul showing a woman moving along a refrigerated aisle, choosing between two brands of cooking oil. She takes her time. She puts one back. She chooses the other. She does all of this with the unhurried ease of someone who has never considered that choosing could be a thing that requires permission. You watch the supermarket clip 3 times. Not the news, the supermarket, the woman's hand on the shelf. The history you were taught said the people of the South lived under occupation, in poverty, in ideological subjugation. The woman does not look subjugated, she looks bored. These are not the same thing. You put the drive back where you found it. You say nothing. But something has transferred that cannot be untransferred. You begin noticing, not because you decide to, but because 13 is the age when the brain starts connecting patterns it previously filed as unrelated. The staff's careful neutrality, which you always read as professionalism, now reads as something maintained under pressure. The calls your father takes in rooms you can't enter. The way certain topics arc around the edges of dinner conversation without anyone acknowledging the arc. The chocolate he brings from Switzerland. There is a country with shops that stock it freely, and those people are not enemies. They are just people, choosing between cooking oils in a world your father has never described accurately. At 16, you find a document in your father's study. Not because you were searching, because you were looking for a pen. It's a report. Typed, official. 3 years old. The language is administrative, dense with passive constructions designed to describe decisions without naming who made them. It covers a province in the northern interior. It lists figures. Child mortality rates, percentage of households reporting chronic food insecurity. No estimated population decline across a 14-year period. The numbers are not dramatic in the way numbers are in history lessons. They are flat and precise and recorded by someone who felt nothing visible while writing them, which is its own kind of feeling. You know this province. Your father gave a speech about it, improved agricultural output, rising living standards. The pride of the Korean people made visible in abundance. The speech and the report are dated the same year. Amat, you put the document back. You go to your room. You sit on the bed. You don't cry. Not because you are not affected, but because the feeling is too structural for tears. It is not grief exactly. It is the moment when a building you have lived in your whole life reveals that one of its load-bearing walls was painted to look like a window, and you understand that the light you thought was coming from outside was always artificial, and the room is exactly the same room it was this morning. And it is also an entirely different room. The love doesn't leave. It rearranges itself around the new information. The way furniture rearranges around a crack in the floor. The crack is there. The room still functions. But you feel it under your feet now with every step, and you know that you will feel it every step from here forward. Your mother finds you in your room that evening. She doesn't ask what's wrong because she has been waiting for this conversation for years, the way you wait for weather you can see forming on the horizon, and she has decided what she will say. She sits on the edge of the bed and she tells you about herself. Not the composed version, the real one. She was the daughter of a senior official in a city 2 hours from Pyongyang. She grew up inside a compound not unlike this one attended by staff who looked past her left shoulder, educated by tutors who addressed her with pressurized formality. She was presented to your father at a formal dinner when she was 19. She understood the function of the dinner before she arrived. She did not love him. She did not know him. She knew his rank, his family's position within the structure, what a union between their families would mean for both. She moved into this house. She learned to arrange flowers because flower arrangement was the one activity in the compound she could govern entirely from beginning to end without any external authority over the outcome. She learned composure because composure was the only form of autonomy available to her, the only thing in the house that was entirely hers. She took medication for anxiety that she kept in a drawer in the flower room because a woman in her position does not have anxiety. She has bearing. "I want to tell you I had no choice," she says, "but that is only true if I use a very narrow definition of choice. I could have refused. The consequences would not have fallen on me alone. The alliances that hold this structure together are not requests. They are architecture. Remove a beam and the ceiling falls on everyone underneath it. I chose to be the beam. I chose it knowing what it was." She pauses. "My mother made the same choice. Nobody told her what she was choosing. Nobody showed her the ceiling before it closed over her." She looks at you. "That is the only thing I have that she didn't. I can show you the ceiling before you stand under it. Not freedom, just the knowledge of what you're inside." Your father finds you in the garden that evening. He sits beside you the way he has always sat beside you, without preamble, without requiring an explanation for your presence or his, as if proximity has always been its own sufficient language. He watches the fish in the pond near the east wall. There are 11 of them. He knows each one. He feeds them himself in the evenings when he is home, and when he is away, he asks a specific staff member to do it. Not anyone, that one. He has done this your entire life. You have watched it your entire life without thinking about what it meant. You think about it now. "Everything I have built is a wall between you and the things I have seen," he says, "not a cage. Walls and cages are different. One keeps things out. One keeps things in." You want to ask him who decides which side of the wall you're on. You don't. You look at his hands, large and still in his lap. The hands that checked your fever and passed you chocolate and foil and fed 11 fish in a compound garden. And you understand that both things are true simultaneously, and that the truth of one does not cancel the truth of the other. This is not a comfort. It is simply the shape of the situation, and you are learning to live inside shapes rather than against them. He loves you. This is not in question. He built a world and placed you at its center and called that fatherhood. Because in the only world he has ever known, building and loving are conjugations of the same verb. He has never been given a reason to learn the difference. The fish move in slow circles in the 3 meters of water your father built for them. They are fed daily. They are named. From above, the pond looks like care. From inside, it looks like the only water they will ever know. You are older now. You stand beside your father at a state function in a hall in Pyongyang where every surface has been arranged to communicate permanence. You are dressed correctly. You stand correctly. Your posture is exact. Your expression is calibrated. Your silence during the conversations of men around you registers as presence rather than absence. You do all of this without effort because you were built for exactly this. The French lessons and the piano and the careful observation of how your mother poured tea and entered rooms and wore her composure like architecture. These were not gifts. They were specifications written into you before you existed by people who understood what you would one day need to be. The window in your room still frames the same garden. The fish are in the pond. The compound is exactly what it was when you were 7, and the world was the size your father made it. The world is still that size. You understand now what that costs. Both things are true, and they will always both be true, and the place where they meet is where you live. Somewhere ahead of you, if the structure holds, there will be a daughter. She will grow up inside a wall and call it home because home is the word for the only place you've ever been. She will find something one day, a document, a drive, a door left open, and she will sit in a room and understand that the hands that were gentle with her also signed her life into a function before she existed. And you will sit beside her. You will hand her what your mother handed you, not freedom, not a way out. The knowledge of what she is standing inside so that when she performs the role she was built for, she performs it with open eyes and not the eyes of someone who believes the walls are the whole world. That is the inheritance, not the territory, not the portraits on every wall in every building in every city of the only country she will ever know. Not the power or the protection or the name that belongs to the outside face rather than the inside one. It's just the knowledge that love and control share the same house, eat at the same table, speak in the same voice. And the only difference between the women who survive it and the women who don't is whether someone showed them the ceiling before it closed. This story is fictional, but the near total absence of women's voices from inside the Kim family's inner circle is documented. Kim Jong-un's daughter, Jui-A, began appearing publicly in 2022, positioned deliberately alongside her father at military events. What she has been told, what she knows, what she will one day understand about the structure she was born into, none of that is in any record. If this one stayed with you, drop a comment and tell me the moment you knew the compound wasn't just a house. Subscribe for more. See you in the next one.